we will get started. Welcome. My name is Sandy Spinagle, and I am your moderator for these webinars. We are doing a series of webinars that the Charles County Economic Development Department and the Charles County Chamber of Commerce have come together to host for you, for the business community here in Charles County. We've got a variety of different topics that we're going to be covering. We've got 6 more weeks of webinars, and we hope that you find great value and are able to join us live so that you can engage in the conversation and ask some of our subject matter experts, take advantage of their expertise while they're here live with us. These webinars are on Tuesday afternoons at 2 o'clock, and you can register by visiting the Charles County Economic Development Department's website. We're also thrilled to have US Tech behind the scenes running the technology pieces of the webinar, so I don't have to worry about remembering to hit record and stuff like that. I can just be here present for you as you add questions into the question and answer box or communicate with us via chat. So if you participated in any of our other webinars, you know that we're pretty informal. We've got a list of questions, but I want you to make sure that you get away with some answer, with the answers to the questions that you have. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put that in the Q&A box. And with that, oh goodness, I just want you to know that we are here for you. I am proud to be able to represent Charles County Economic Development Department and the Chamber of Commerce in this capacity. I myself am a small business owner. I have a small team that I am proud to be working with every single day. And this topic of online team building and communications, I said to the panelists before we got started, is the topic that I am the most interested in because I need it the most. It is ever changing. I don't think this is going to be a pandemic only topic. I think this is something that will certainly continue to evolve. Before I introduce the panelists, there's a quote that I wanted to share that a colleague sent to me that is something to be somewhat mindful of, and I'm going to read it because otherwise I would butcher it, but I don't know who to credit it to, so I'm going to say anonymous. Your staff are not working from home. They are at home during a crisis trying to work. It's different. But having said that, I do realize that this is a topic that goes far beyond a pandemic and is something that, I hope that the information that you learned today will carry you in great strides into the future. With that, I'm going to start with a quick introduction of our panelists today. I will start with Dave. Dave and Lisa are partners in their business, but I'm going to let the two of them introduce themselves.
Well, all right, we'll start. We always introduce each other, so I'm going to introduce my partner, Lisa Hammer. We've been working together for 10 years now, Leadership Techniques, and we do project management and leadership training and consulting. And Lisa started her career as a 6th grade teacher and then moved into project management and then executive management. And basically, I love working with Lisa, and hopefully you'll have fun for the next hour with her as well.
Thanks, Dave, and I'll tell you a little bit about Dave. Dave spent a few years in the Army. When he got out of the Army, he wasn't exactly sure what he wanted to do, but he got a job with Raytheon Missile Systems up in Massachusetts, and he found that he really enjoyed doing mechanical drawing. He went on and got his degree in mechanical engineering, then went on to become a manager and didn't have a lot of experience in the area of management and leadership. So he got some formal training in frontline leadership, got a master's degree from Johns Hopkins in technical management, and spent most of his career in the area of telecommunications, computer software, things like that, and really did very well working with smaller teams. And as he mentioned, we met about 11 years ago, started our company. We teach leadership, project management, we teach project management certification, and we've been working very closely with the Project Management Institute, PMI. We are also instructors for the PMI, which is the largest nonprofit in the world for project management, and we do training for them around the world Unfortunately, it's been virtual over the past month or two, but it's been okay. We've been adjusting and we really are excited about this new way of working. So we're excited to talk to you about that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And next, Brianna Boyne, if you participated in the webinar last week, you will recognize her as a return panelist with us today. Brianna, would you mind sharing everybody? And I'm going to flip up a few slides for you too.
Sure. Yeah, no, I would be glad to. And I'm going to keep this very brief because I know we only have an hour and I want to make sure that we get to the meat of the matter here. So I started a company called Zakai Technologies many years ago. I exited from that last year or 2 years ago now. And I started two new companies, Brendan LLC, where I do business coaching and training. I do public speaking. I used to teach in person. Again, I'm doing them online as well. And that's been a little bit of a pivot for me. And then I also started a retreat company, which is totally different from me. And so I've been doing retreats at a waterfront location, everything from yoga and meditation to essential oils. And I just learned about block therapy. And I've had to pivot that in terms of now I'm doing a lot of, I've been interviewing people who are in the wellness industry on different topics, and I've been doing them online as well. So it's been a big pivot for me, things that I've had to learn. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to learn from Dave and Lisa too.
Likewise.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So with that, I would like to kick off the questions, and we can figure out maybe Lisa, if you want to snag this one first or figure out, but now that many employees are teleworking, what are some of the ways that we should be communicating with them?
Yep. And, Dave and I have been talking about that quite a bit, and we get that question very often. And first of all, the answer is yes, we should be communicating with them. That's one of the misconceptions about working remotely. We absolutely need to communicate with them, and not only communicate, but communicate more than we usually do, because we need to stay connected. We need to have that connectivity. It's critical to do that. It doesn't mean that we need to pop in every 2 minutes on them any more than we did in person, because we shouldn't do that in person. We shouldn't interrupt people all the time. In fact, most studies show that, if you take someone offline for a 2-minute question, they're down for 20 minutes at least, because you've lost their train of thought. They've moved into a different direction. So that shouldn't change, but we need to make sure that we do stay connected. We do communicate with them, and we really decide, when and how we communicate. As you mentioned, Sandy, a lot of people are using Zoom, and that's great. But I wouldn't just all of a sudden, expect that people sit on Zoom all day and you just pop in their window every 2 minutes.
Yeah. Is there something, there in terms of the frequency? Are you seeing, trends of, when it's important, how often we should be touching base?
Well,
Dave?
what we're seeing is kind of, there's a lot of companies out there and a lot of folks out there that have been working from home, right? They're not just home working now. So, I guess it's a little bit obvious when that's the case. It's a much more natural transition when the rest of the team is now working remotely, right? What we tend to see in teams that are just now becoming remote is a little bit, one of the questions coming up is a little bit about micromanagement. What we're seeing and hearing about is a little bit more of that. And so what we think is people need to kind of learn more of the balance, right? And make it more of a natural conversation rather than, feeling like, I better check in every 20 minutes and make sure people are working. Because you know what? We still have our natural things that we have to do, right? Our bodily functions and getting up and walking around. And in fact, there's some advice out there, the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, walk at least 20 feet and look at least 20 feet away, right? So that's 3 times an hour. Get up from your computer, walk around the room at least, or walk around, the floor of the house and look out a window so that you're distancing your eyes, right? And so expecting our people to be at their computer every second of the day isn't fair, right? So We think that we need to see more of a balance with that respect, sort of back off a little bit.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I wrote down that 20-20-20 rule. I didn't know it was nice out yesterday until the end of the day.
Yeah. And that's,
So,
I mean, there's already a lot of stress and a lot of pressure and a lot of depression.
mhm.
And, the weather hasn't helped around here in Maryland, right? For the last month, pretty much since we got the shelter in place order, it's been cloudy and rainy, right? And so all of that, when we sit in a room all day and keep the curtains closed so there's no distractions and all those sorts of things, we can become closed in and shut off. And then, the sort of the oppression builds up on us.
Brianna, what are you seeing in terms of, some thoughts on, or even how to best to communicate in this capacity?
So I have a couple of things. And Dave, you brought up some really great points in that, they're not checking in on people and asking and micromanaging them. And I think we have to remember as employers why we hired them in the first place. We hired them because they were competent, good people that we knew would get the job done. And so you have to trust that. So when you're reaching out to them, you want to reach out to your staff on a regular basis, but not with the point of, hey, are you doing your job? But hey, how can I help you as an employer? How can I give you the tools that you need to do your job? And then also beyond that, how many tools, but also treat them as a person. How are you? Show me a picture of things. So we did something today. I'm still on the board of directors of Zakiah Technologies. And one of the things we do is we have something called the Zakiah community page. And it's a Facebook page just set aside just for our employees. And we're a small company, we're 30 some people. It's not a ton of people, but we're all on there. And today we posted, show us something in your office, show us something of personal nature in your office so that we feel connected as a community and that we're seeing you as a person. And it was really fun to see, that somebody's cat, somebody's dog, somebody's guitar, the view out their window, they became people again. All the things that are normally happening around a cooler now can happen now maybe on a Zakiah community page. And that's all good. So thinking about why you're reaching out to them is checking to make sure that they're okay, not that they're doing their job. They're going to do their job. You hired good people. Trust that.
Right. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. This afternoon, my Platinum PR team and I are doing a virtual happy hour. So yes, the day might be ending a little short, but.
If I could just say, Sandy, one other thing related to that is that, the way you start a meeting or you start, an in-person happy hour where you're in small clusters, just chatting among yourselves. Well, we've done that in both classes and as well, I had my book club on Zoom. And what I did was I started out sending people to breakout rooms. So, you have a cluster of 3 or 4 people in one breakout room and 3 or 4 in another. A few minutes just to chat among themselves before you bring everyone back to the full group. So that's the way we start most meetings where, we just congregate, we start talking about something, and then we move into the full agenda.
I love it. Anna, what about ways, and you mentioned, reaching out to them to help them, reminding them that they're humans and, that you appreciate them and the value that they have. Are there any particular ways to communicate that information and to, just to make them feel, any tools or tips that you might be able to share?
So there's 2 different levels. I mean, you're talking about your employees and you're also talking about your management. And I think one of the things that we tend to forget is that we get down on our management too. Like, hey, stay in touch with your employees. Don't forget to check in on them. But how do we check in with our managers too to say, hey, how are you doing? Do you need tools or do you need training or do you need a conversation? Just sit down and let's talk to me. Don't send them to, some type of formal training, but do you want to have, a 3 o'clock coffee hour where we sit and talk about what your challenges are in terms of managing your employees? So there's the employees and then there's also the management of our employees and the managers who manage our employees. So that's one thing is, set aside a particular time that, be every Thursday at 3 o'clock, you're going to talk to them. Find out and ask them, what are your challenges, and expect there to be challenges. Don't expect that they got it all together. They probably don't. And that's okay and then maybe share your challenges. You become human so that they have the opportunity to become human too.
Yeah. This idea of vulnerability and, leading from that place is great. I appreciate it. Lisa, I want to shift into this avoiding micromanagement conversation that, Dave had mentioned earlier. Can you talk a little bit about, or any tips so that we're not under communicating or micromanaging the team?
Yeah, well, the first thing we like to talk about is the concept of servant leadership. And if you practice the concept of servant leadership, you won't be micromanaging. So Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about the servant leadership and how that plays in?
Yeah, well, it was great. It ties right in with exactly what Brianna was talking about before. In fact, we always say, we always, when we're doing management by walking around, which Sandy, you said you miss doing, right? Walking around and not checking up on people, but checking in with people. And, we always ask three questions. How are you doing? How's the team doing? Not meaning, what are you doing? Or how is your task coming along? But how are you? Really, how are you doing? And we're talking about now in the absence of Corona, when we're in the workplace and we can actually talk to people. And what we've gotten accustomed to is that so many companies are partially dispersed, right? So some of the people are there on site, some of them aren't. But the three questions are, how you doing? How are you? How's the team? So that we can take the temperature of the team from the perspective of each individual on the team. And then most importantly, how can I help? And we do a lot of work in the area of servant leadership, teaching servant leadership. But the reality of servant leadership is that if we are servant leaders, then as we are executing our leadership role, one of the foremost thoughts in our mind, really the first thought in our mind is, how much will my employees, how much will my team benefit from what I'm doing? Will they grow as a result of working for me? Will they become better as a result of participating on this team? And so if we're thinking that way in the first place, of what can I do to facilitate the team? What can I do to make their lives easier? What can I do to make their lives less stressful? We're not going to micromanage, right? That is the opposite of micromanagement. Micromanagement is really telling people how to do their jobs. And again, I couldn't agree more with Brianna when she says, trust your people. We hired smart people. We spent so much time and money hiring smart people. Let's trust them to do what they've been trained to do. That's what they want to do, right? And so let's just let them do it. So if we're really looking for ways to facilitate the team, we're gonna veer away from micromanagement in the first place.
Cool, thank you. Shifting the conversation a little bit, and it's kind of a two-parter, and I'm curious of the different experiences and stuff. Do you have recommendations for digital communications platforms, whether it's, Zoom, conference call, other systems? And then what about project management? I understand project management, obviously, that's what David Lisa, that's what you do, is kind of teach these systems. Are there some thoughts or tips that could be some really good takeaways in this short period of time?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Dave, if you want to pick up. So first of all, we are advocates for something like Google Drive, and we've been using that forever, and that's not something new to us. But it's a really nice collaborative opportunity for you to share documents and not have to, call everyone and see what's going on. As far as project management, though, it really doesn't change that much from what we normally do. There are two tools that we use quite a bit, Microsoft Project, and there's something called Smartsheet, which is not as popular, but it's a much easier platform to use. So for project managers, we highly recommend using one of those two platforms, and you could definitely manage your projects, manage your schedules, your resources, your budgets, and things like that. Dave, did you want to elaborate on any of those?
Well, yeah, and for communications, things like Microsoft Teams, Slack are becoming very popular, those two titles in particular. We use both of those depending on which client we're working with, and they both work great, but they're highly collaborative. They allow document sharing. They allow, different streams of conversation through threads. So it's kind of easier to track which conversation goes with which, root, where that came from, root thread. So we've been using Slack and Microsoft Teams a lot for communication. And another one of the most popular software titles out there for project management is something called Jira. from Atlassian. So for people that are working with something called Agile, which a lot of project managers will be familiar with, Jira is popular for that.
Cool. Fran, I'm curious of your experience going from, tech company startup to wellness retreat startup, and how you're incorporating and using tools like that in your businesses.
I mean, I'm going to reiterate what they said. I mean, I think that they're good. They have great examples of Dave and Lisa gave. We use Google Drive. We use Google Hangouts. We actually are a Google platform. So whichever platform you're familiar with, I suggest sticking with it. Don't use, Google in this and, Microsoft for that. I mean, try to stay in one platform because people become familiar with that, what that look and the feel and the way that it works. So for our company, for Zakia, we use Google Hangouts to talk to each other. We use Google Drive. We use, Google email, and that keeps it nice and simple. For us, for me and I personally, I mean, because the two smaller companies are just me, so, who am I communicating with? Me? It's not really complicated. Zakia, I'm still very much involved in. And so that's the formats that we're using.
Yeah. And Brianna brings up a point there that I'd just like to mention. With a one-person company, I would imagine communication is a little bit easier. We have
a little.
We have a two-person company, and somebody was just asking me about communications, and I was talking about it. I said, the reality of it is that Lisa and I have a communication plan. And there's only two of us. And yet still sometimes there's a little bit of frustration, not a lot, not anything like working in. We both come from, corporations where, we understand what corporate communications are like. But every once in a while, something will happen where we'll say to each other, you know what, we need to fix our plans so that we don't get frustrated by that. And one of the recent ones comes where now we're not working together in the same office all day. And even like now, we usually co-present. So we're either in a room in front of people teaching, or we're in an office together, right? So now we're separated, just like everybody else. We're doing this shelter in place thing. And so if I step away from my desk, how does Lisa get a hold of me, right? And we needed to talk about that. We needed to work that out because we have a million different tools, right? We have a phone, we have IMs, we have Slack, we have all these different things going on, but which one are we going to keep our eye on? And I wanted to mention that because I think for a company of any size, above one probably, you need a communication plan. You need to really think about who needs to communicate with whom, what information do they need, when do they need it, and document the plan, and then do your best to follow it and keep it alive so that you can get out in front of communications. Because by doing that, we start to avoid a lot of the interruptions that tend to happen when people are lacking communication.
And if I can just speak to the communication plan, prior to being separated like this, Dave said we had a communication plan. And we did, and it works really, really well. And the communication plan is that all communication for our company goes through me. Even if somebody wants Dave, they send communication to me. And that's not a reflection on Dave, it's a reflection on why should it go to both of us? So let's say, Sandy, you sent an email to me and Dave and you had a question. If we were working together, we would stop what we're doing and go, hey, did you get the email from Sandy? Are you gonna answer that? You want me to answer it? We don't have to have that communication now. The communication is, you know what? I get it. I answer it. If I need to ask Dave for his input, I will. If not, I copy him so he knows what I've answered. But we don't have to stop and have that discussion. So we are big advocates for any organization having that kind of communication plan where you know who the person is who's going to answer things. And I'll tell you what, your clients will appreciate that too. Because we do a lot of work with one organization. We don't name names, but we do a lot of work with one organization where, they have 5 or 6 people that we've been in touch with. And I never know who to send what questions to. So, knowing if there's a single point of contact is critical and such a great time saver for everybody.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I need to out myself and my company because we do not do that as a communications company. No, we don't. But anyway, I'm going to pop up a poll question here real quick. And if you, because I am curious, as we've been talking about this idea of how large the organizations are that are watching, that are participating here today. So if you could just answer the question. I don't, obviously the solo entrepreneur would go in that 1 to 3 category, but I'm curious how, what size we have here in the audience. Super helpful. And then, next we're going to kind of shift the topic a little bit and, talk about some of the team building activities. And we had had a question or had a suggestion about playing interactive games during meetings and stuff like that. But I'm looking at, for some team building activities that we can do as a group.
So Sandy, I have one on that. And so one of the things that we do is at the beginning, since we're doing these online calls, like if this was our webinar and it was just the 4 of us sitting in this call, typically how you start a live meeting is that you would have some type of icebreaker, right? So you should do the same thing when you're doing a Zoom meeting or any type of virtual meeting as well. And I can send, if you want afterwards, if you want to put it to the comments or whatever, I can send you a couple little icebreakers. And they can be very simple. It can be simple things like what I said before, that, just post a picture of something sitting on your desk and it just starts a conversation while we're waiting and sitting around in that meeting beforehand. That's been really super helpful. And then the other thing too, that I did forget to mention before, was that there's still a lot of good news happening that they're probably not being able to hear. It used to be you yell over top of your cubicle, hey, did you hear that, Joe got this new contract? Well, that's not happening now. So it's probably pretty important to have, every Monday morning you send out the good news email that says, hey, here's all the good things happening in our company. And they can be something that has to do business related, but also bringing it back to trying to make them feel like people, because sometimes we're starting to feel like just heads on a virtual screen. Hey, so-and-so bought a new house last week. Let's all congratulate them. That's great. Look what they've accomplished. So good news throughout the whole company and every aspect of their life.
I love that. I have a client that sends booty shakes. So she will
I like that.
create a little, a quick little video when there's a win, and she needs to do a little booty shake to celebrate. And and so she'll post it out on Slack or something and say, hey, this is our win. This is what we've done. And I want everybody to get the virtual booty shake with us.
That's good.
It's fun. But
I like it.
Yeah, silly. I'm going to stop sharing the poll, but you can see we had a lot of people in that 4 to 10, and then in the over 30. So, stop sharing that now. Thank you for participating. And now back to our regularly scheduled program here. Let's see. Brianna, yes, the team activities and the sharing. I love the picture. I'm going to be stealing that idea. Dave, did you have any thoughts on, some of that team building stuff that can happen?
For the specifics of that's a challenge for all of us as trainers, right? So Lisa and I, in our in-person classes, they are filled with activities all day. And so what we have done is probably, I would call it around 80% conversion of the activities we do in class to online, whether it's a discussion, answering questions amongst yourself and then sharing the answers, brainstorming. Some of them are very easy to convert because they were just people sitting at tables anyways and talking and sharing results. So that's easy. Sometimes we have them draw things so they can draw, with crayons or whatever, and then share that.
I like that.
We've come up with some ideas for some potentially group scavenger hunts. We haven't executed on that one yet. So, but mainly we think that, I know you're looking for specific activities, and it's just hard because we have activities in our classes where we have people play with Tinker Toys, which for those of you that don't know what Tinker Toys are, we call them baby boomer Legos. But anyway, they're toys from the 60s that we bought on eBay, and we carry them with us around the country, and we have people build stuff. Well, we can't do that in virtual, right? So we've thought of different ways of having people be able to build stuff at home with items they will have sitting around, like napkins and straws, things like that if they have, or just draw. But the real point I want to make is when you're thinking about doing any kind of training, activities are crucial, and they're probably 10 times as important with online training as they are in person.
Yeah, and if I can just piggyback on that, Dave and I did a 5-day PMP exam prep training a few weeks ago with a corporation down in Arlington. And, 35 hours of pretty dry material definitely requires very interactive type of environments. So not only did we use breakout rooms quite a bit, but we did some group activities that you would never think you can do virtually. Like we do something called sound ball, where you see the ball I'm holding up. You see the ball? Everyone see the ball I'm holding? Yeah, no, there's no ball, right? But it's an imaginary ball.
Throw
So
it to me.
yeah, okay, so here's how sound ball works. I'm gonna throw the ball to Dave. There's 2 rules of this game. When I throw it, I have to make an obnoxious sound. And when he catches it, he has to make an obnoxious sound. So let's go, Dave. Ah!
Woo! Woo!
We did that with 30 people, and it was so much fun.
In gallery view.
Yeah, so yeah, we went into gallery view, we took our slides away. So just something like that. And we do that in person when we teach classes. Of course, then it's make everyone stand up, move around a little bit, get interactive, but it worked really well. And people have fun doing that. And you just laugh, and it takes 2 or 3 minutes and just really changes the tone of what you're doing.
I love it. I love it. I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of how we can maintain company culture when our clients are teleworking, when we're not there in the same room together. And obviously there are lots of organizations with multiple locations, multiple offices. So in some aspects, this isn't new, but for some of us, it is very new and could be quite a challenge. Brianna, do you have thoughts on kind of this idea of company culture and
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to keep going back to Zakai just because it's a larger company than my one-person companies. And so it's a little bit easier to talk about. But so Zakai, we've taken a lot of pride in that our family type culture. And I said, and that's continuing, in terms of we have the Zakai community page that we're sharing things. We're trying to get together. We're asking how things are going personally. So I think that family culture has stayed. But I think one thing that I think we all have to recognize and kind of give ourselves kind of a pass on, or be kind to ourselves on, is that our culture is going to change. And so maybe we're not maintaining our culture, but we're recognizing what our new culture is and embracing that, and maybe embracing the fact that it might actually be better. There's a lot of things that are going to come from this that is going to improve our culture and allow us to do things differently. So instead of maintaining that culture, let's think about what is our new culture and how do we make it the best culture that it can be.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Dave, did you have any thoughts on that?
My only thought on that, I totally agree with that. And the only other thought I have on that is that as we're getting used to this, look, Lisa and I, we've been teaching together for 10 years as of May 6th, right? Exact May 6th, 2010 was the first class we ever did. And we thought doing online training, online training is not new. It's been around probably since we've been in business, right? And probably for the last 8 years, people have been saying to us, so are you doing webinars yet? Are you doing virtual training yet? Because, e-training is coming and it's going to sideline you guys. And we say, well, you know what? We love being with people. We love being in front of people. And as long as people are going to come into the room with us, that's how we're going to work. And then all of a sudden, about 6 weeks ago, we're learning Zoom, right? And I was talking to Lisa about this morning. I think in order to maintain a culture, right, whether it's an evolved one, like Brianna said, or a completely new one, this has to become natural. And for Lisa and I, it has become natural. We Zoom with each other 2 or 3 times a day. If we have a day where we have no outside contact at all, it's just an office day and we're both, doing our work, we Zoom 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, to touch base for about 15 or 20 minutes. We're doing this is what I'm going to do today, or this is what I did today, or this is what's going on, all that kind of stuff. We don't just use the phone. We talk face to face on Zoom. And by doing that, this has all become very natural to us. And the more you do that, the more you get used to it. So our advice is get everybody to not shy away from the camera, right? Get used to the camera, because once you do, after a few days, it becomes very natural. And then the true culture of the company will come through electronically as well.
Dave, you said something really important there. And it's funny, I didn't know that that's what I was doing. So it's kind of interesting that you said it. And that when I was teaching my online classes a couple weeks ago, the first class that I did, everybody just showed up. They just naturally just turned on their camera. It was great. The second class, nobody turned it on. And I was kind of like, oh, I felt like I was talking to a blank screen. I'm thinking, this is crazy. I don't like teaching like this. And I feel like, are they even there? I'm not even sure. Maybe they walked off and they had their cat watching me, right? That's not a good feeling. So the third class I taught, I said, all right, I'm setting this up. It's going to be better. So I sent out an email the morning of, and I said, hey, just a reminder, the reminder you always send, saying, hey, don't forget, we're having our class today at 2:00, and just be prepared. Everyone must have video on. So, feel free to wear what you want, but you're going to have your video on. And so it gave them the heads up, because I think if you don't give them the heads up, then they're like, wait a minute, man. I mean, I got curlers in my hair. I don't know what I have, who knows? I just started frosting my head. I don't know what you're doing. So give them the heads up, but man, it makes such a difference in the world. And it's funny. They don't want to do it, but then once they do have the video, they feel more connected, and they feel they start to remember that, hey, you know what? I actually do like seeing these people, and we are a community, and we are a culture, and that culture, that new culture starts developing. So I think that's a really awesome point, Dave.
And Brianna, to your point, we do that as well. We tell people now, you will be on camera. You need to show your video. And every now and then we'll have one, like in our last class last week, we had a one-day class. And we had someone write to me after she got the email and said, I have connectivity issues. I won't be able to do that. And I said, okay. Well, she came to class. She didn't show her video. We put them in a breakout room in the first 15 minutes. She came back from the breakout room and she was showing her video. So sometimes they may be shy initially.
Right.
Once we put them in a breakout room together, then she came back and everybody wanted it. So we agree with you, Brianna. And it is, in our opinion, mandatory that people use their camera. We that way. And as far as company culture, I mean, if you have certain things you want to do as far as, dress code or, being on time or things like that, do what you need to do if you want to maintain that. There's nothing wrong with saying, we'll still be dressed professionally, at least from the neck up, from the waist up, right?
And don't stand up. And actually, it's funny you just said that. It just made me think, we were trying to think of like different ways of creating culture. And I think, going back to camp, I don't know if you guys went to camp, right? And so there was a lot of things that happened at camp that I'm just thinking just now, this is brainstorming right off the top of my head here, that we did at camp in terms of creating culture and bonding with the people that are there, that I think might be able to apply to what we're having to do today. So let's say that you have a meeting every Monday with your team. What if you started setting like, there's a theme to that meeting. Everybody, it's a crazy hair day. Very similar to what you did in camp. And that might start creating some of those bonds that are kind of, they're difficult to do when you're just looking at someone's head. We're starting to feel like little puppets, not real people. So that might make them feel real again.
I love it. And I will go ahead and share, Dave, maybe you don't want me to share this, but I will.
Go ahead.
When we work in the office together, I know Sandy's like, gosh.
Yay.
I have no idea what's coming next.
Well, when Dave and I work in the office together, which isn't that often because, usually we're teaching, but when we have what we call an office day, during lunch, we'll have lunch together and we'll play backgammon or we'll play chess. So we started doing that online now. So
perfect.
Online game where we play backgammon together during lunch. So it really, again, that's another way to just maintain that connectivity and, the enjoyment that we used to have when we'd have lunch together.
I love it. And I cannot wait
to share. We should probably mention
themes,
while we're on this, for people that aren't used to working at home, if this is a new experience for them, there's a lot of advice out there for home workers, right? For people who have to work at home. And two, I think of the pieces of advice that have helped me over the years be very, very focused when I'm at home. First of all, you can see my home. I'm lucky, I'm lucky in a way. I'm an empty nester, right? My wife and I are empty nesters. So this is one of my kids' bedrooms, right? But I'm closed off. The door is closed. I'm not in the house now. I'm in the Leadership Techniques office. That's pretty important. The other thing is I'm dressed, and I got dressed this way this morning, and I get dressed every day as if I'm leaving the office and going to work. Now, for Lisa and I, that's a little bit pragmatic because we never know when somebody's going to call and we're going to, want to get on with the client, but that's not why I'm doing it. I get up every morning and get dressed as if I'm leaving the house to go to work. I come to Leadership Techniques and close that door, and I feel like I'm at work, and I am at work. And I think that that's really important for people to understand. Don't stay in your comfy clothes all day, right? Because it starts to slowly over time sap your energy. So we need to stay up. We need to stay enthusiastic, especially if you're in a leadership position, and stay professional. And that's part of the company culture as well.
That's great. Thank you. Those are great tips. Although the only one I wrote down was crazy hair day. So I don't know
Sorry.
what else you said, but,
That's my everyday. So it would make me feel better if everyone was looking like me. That'd be great.
I was on a Zoom call this morning and somebody said, "Oh my God, Sandy, did you get your hair cut? You didn't go to the salon, did you?" I said, "No, I washed it." Yes, so have no fear, the gray is still there. What about rewarding or motivating our team members during this time to embrace this online world? Any tips or ideas there?
Dave, I'm going to feed off of what you just said. So one of the things that I think was important to Zekiah when we went online, all of our people were used to working not only in an office space, they were used to working in SCIFs, doing, work on the base. And so this was a drastic change for them and for the majority of them. And so we actually put on a class right at the beginning, and it was on how to basically work at home, and it covered a lot of the tips that Dave just said, making sure that you're dressed each day, and how to do, different Zoom calls, time management, using things like the Pomodoro method and different things like that. So that, how do you divide your day? Email management, how do you create a work atmosphere and feel like you're commuting to work? And so we provided that as a way of making sure that they had their tools that they needed to do this. And then in terms of reward, one of the things we did is we sent everybody a gift card to help right at the beginning so that they could outfit their office and things that they need. Maybe they needed a new mouse or a new mouse pad, or, maybe we didn't tell them how they had to use it. If they wanted to buy a big bag of gummy worms to sit next to their desk, well, that's what they needed in order to do their job. So we just sent them a gift card. You figure out what you're going to do with it, but make your work environment a good place.
Yeah, that's great.
I love it. What about employee flexibility, being flexible with our employees, in these days, in these times? We've, have this, we've got employees that are team members that are homeschooling their kids right now. And so they're juggling between, homeschooling teacher and employee. And, what are your thoughts there? Lisa?
Yeah, I think that there has to be a balance. And I'm glad you brought up the idea of having kids at home. We've had so many people in our classes who have, we had one young lady last week, she was chatting with me at one point and she was literally having a breakdown. She just said, "I can't do it." She have 4 kids between the ages of 3 and 10. And, between trying to teach them at home, and she said, and when you all take a break, I don't take a break. I'm going inside to see what, my kids tore up, while
Which emergency now?
Yeah. What do I need? What emergency do I need to put out? So we did need to be sensitive to that, but it's okay also to tell people, what, between 9 and 11, I need you to be connected. So it's okay to give certain standards of what you need, but we do have to understand it is very stressful for people to have that situation. I personally have a niece who has a 15-month-old and a 3-year-old, and she's trying to do a full-time job. And her husband is working out of the house. So that's close to impossible to be able to do that. So we need to be a little more tolerant of that, understand that this is going to happen. But we also, as an employer, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, but there's certain things I need from you, and work that out. And make sure we're having that conversation. Don't have just a rule and say everybody has to live by it. Have a conversation, because everyone's situation is different. I don't have children in the house, but I have other things that may stress me out from working at home that, aren't going to be affecting, Dave, for example. So everyone does have their own thing that they bring. And so we need to be a little more understanding, but have that conversation. We can't emphasize enough communicating with your team, finding out what's going on with them, and finding out what we need to do to make it work for everybody.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
the reason we put a stressful face and then a happy face there is because we see this as an opportunity for leaders, frontline leaders, project managers especially. Everybody kind of looks to our political leaders, all the way from the county leadership to city to state to national. We're all looking at the sort of the big leaders, right? But we at the frontline leadership level, we're right there dealing with the people in the trenches, right? And what causes a lot of the stress that does us damage is a lack of control, right? Which is exactly why micromanagement stresses people out, because we're taking control away from people. And so what's happening now in this, with the shelter in place order, is that we don't feel in control, right? We feel, some of us more than others, but I'm not in control. I don't have choices like that I'm used to having. And so that causes stress. So as frontline leaders, we have to realize that, on top of all the stuff, when they were coming into the office all the time, they were already stressed out. There was plenty of stress then. Now, increase everybody's stress by 100% or so, and understand that one of the ways that we can help reduce people's stress is by putting some control back in their hands. And that's where flexibility plays into that equation, right? The more flexibility we can give them, the more control we're giving them.
At least they don't have the commute stress that they have to deal with.
That's true. That's
down
true.
to 70. But one other thing I want to mention before it's lost in this discussion, when we teach or when we're working with even new clients or new people on the phone that we haven't been on with before, we always do a 2-minute Zoom tutorial. And so the first thing we ask them, just like, we say, go to the participant list and give me a hands up if this is your first time on Zoom. And so that way I see, I look down the list real quick and I see, okay, we have several people who are new to Zoom. So I spend a couple of minutes explaining the speaker view and the gallery view and the chat at the bottom, just to give them a little bit of comfort, because not everybody is comfortable with the technology. And we know we have different people with different levels of comfort, and we want to do what we can to avoid that. So if you have folks who are new to the whole Zoom, platform, or whatever platform you're using, take a couple of minutes at the beginning, show them around, show them what different things look like. The one thing we can't do is we can't always mirror our screen to theirs. We don't always, we can show them what ours looks like, but we call it the Brady Bunch pictures, right? They all come out in a different order for everyone, but we could definitely show them how the gallery view versus a speaker view looks and how to get to the chat and things like that. So it's important to do what you can to take that stress away from them.
Sandy, I want to add just something, since you asked the question about homeschooling. I just wanted to add one thing. Ironically, right before I started this, I had a interview today on my Retreat and Learn Facebook page with a woman who was teaching homeschooling tips. So I can send you the link to that. It was a half-hour interview, and this is a woman who homeschooled for 16 years and also was a public school teacher. And so she gave me some really awesome tips on how to do what she says. It's not homeschooling, it's crisis schooling, and how we can all do that. So I'll be glad to send you the link to that if that's helpful to people.
That'd be awesome. We get a lot of those questions too. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Is it possible to post that in here? I don't know how that works, but
yep. You can send it to me. You can email me and we'll put it up on the Charles County Economic Development Department's website,
Okay.
Meet Charles County website, and with the replay of this webinar.
Okay.
And yeah, that's just it. I mean, these are people that have, they didn't sign up for homeschooling, and now they're like all of a sudden in this crazy juggle. And
it is hard.
Yeah.
One thing we really should mention also from the HR side is that we're in a very unique, obviously, situation now, unprecedented. It's never happened before. So many people don't quite know how to handle it, and the legalities of this, the litigation is just going through the roof. And so remember that there is a certain level of reasonable accommodation that's required. Right. And so when if you're in a managerial position, when your people are asking you for accommodation for things like taking care of family members and homeschooling and stuff like that, some of the things that may not have been considered okay 2 months ago now would be considered within reasonable accommodation. So we really have to think about that from a flexibility perspective as well.
Thank you. I would encourage, the attendees, please post a question in here. We've got an amazing, very diverse, panel group here. So really appreciate all of your time as attendees participating. Got a couple of, one more wrap up question, but I'm gonna, hope that others will chime into the Q&A. But it's interesting, reflecting on the last 45 minutes together, I think there were only 1 or 2 instances where we actually referenced the current pandemic. Everything else were tips and things that we can be doing regardless. And, Lisa, I think you and I before this call referenced this new normal that everybody keeps talking about. And I think that, very soon, hopefully, more businesses will be able to open, and we're going to start, seeing a change, but we've been changed. And so now how can we continue? The notes that I wrote down were this 20-20-20 rule, and, getting up and walking around and taking care of self is really important, whether you're, in the office or at home, really being authentic. And oh my gosh, I love the how are you doing, not what are you doing question. That resonated for me. I think so often we get caught in this hamster wheel of gotta go, do.
Right.
And then we forget to pause for a second and check in with self so that we can check in with others.
Deep breaths.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that very soon we will see this return to, I'll use the phrase, the new normal. But I hope that with that, we see an even a greater opportunity and respect to come together but still focus on us as a team and, us as humans that are trying to grow. And, Brianna, I think that honestly, your business from a retreat perspective, facilitating that, I'd love to see even more people doing that to learn from this experience and then next level for the future. So it's interesting. Let's see, a comment. I think our organizations will move forward with a blend. Yeah, blend of virtual and real in-person events. We are definitely all learning all of this. Bonnie, is the head of the Charles County Chamber of Commerce, and they're doing a lot of virtual events right now. Hopefully the Chamber will start to transition into live events once they can do that. But yeah, I think we're all there to, continue to learn from one another. There are certainly some cost savings associated with, coming together in this capacity. But yeah, the human connection piece is, I think all are going to be thriving for it. So,
to speak to what you said earlier about not mentioning the pandemic, Dave and I have been doing several webinars for example, our local Chamber of Commerce. We're in Frederick, Maryland. So they have a month of learning and they're doing webinars all month long. So we've done several for them. We're doing webinars for the PMI, the Project Management Institute. And I think it's really good just again to give people a sense of connectivity. It's not about know, how do we work in this new environment? It's just an educational session. So it's just like we would be doing it in person. And for just that 1 hour of that webinar, you know what? They've forgotten about what's going on around them. And, you know, I'm not saying we could ever forget this, because we will never forget this. Just that hour, just for that period of time, let people think about something different. We did one on Monday on creative problem solving. And, you know, just talk about something that's outside of how do we deal with what we're doing on a regular basis. People really enjoy that opportunity to connect with their peers, to see other folks like-minded and in an environment that, you know, even if it's not face-to-face, but just gets their mind off looking at the news and looking at Facebook and looking at what's, you know, Governor Hogan going to say in 5 minutes.
Is he coming on in 5? No, I'm just kidding.
He is.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Yes,
we
he
had a
is.
guy, we actually had a guy ask us the other day, so my team is now working remotely. Am I going to be able to engage them? And Lisa and I said, sure, of course you are. And he said, oh, good, because I never could before.
Thanks. Any final tips? We have somebody had another comment. The webinar has opened up some ideas to use with her team during their weekly meetings, or, you know, until they're able to meet again. So thank you. But I'm just going to go down the list. If there are any final tips or techniques, anything that you want to share, Brianna, we'll start with you.
No, I'm just going to end with, I mean, I think that we've shared a number of tips, you know, making sure that we're using our technology, that we're sharing good news. You know, we're trying to, you know, reach out to people, ask how they're doing, and also make sure that we're reaching out to them as people, not as tools of our company. So I think if we do all of those things, and then just keeping in mind to be kind to one another and be kind to ourselves, and that this is a different time. It's a different time that we're all trying to learn. And if we're just all kind, it's all going to work out. Everything's going to be good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. If you need help, reach out for help. People like us are around, and lots of people are out there offering help. If you don't need help, reach out to help, because if you are feeling stress, helping other people will help you reduce your own stress.
Yeah, and one of the things that Dave and I offered when this first started was just helping companies with something just like this, just what you put together, Sandy. How do I communicate with my team? How do I communicate with my clients? Just how do I look at this roadmap that's different from anything I've done? So we're always happy to help and just have that conversation. You know, you're struggling. What can we do to help? We have some clients who have said, well, I'm not going to do anything online. This will be for long. And in fact, today we had somebody who said that to us in the middle of March. And now she's like, yeah, maybe we need to talk about online. I'm like, yeah, I think so. So I think that we just need to work with people where they are. You know, we always say, work with people where they are. Don't try and move them somewhere where they're not comfortable. But when they're ready to have that discussion, be available. And to both Dave and Brianna's points, so many people are struggling right now, and so many people are going through so much hardship that whatever we can do just to tell people we're there for them, even if it's just, you know what, a quick chat or a joke or an IM or something like that, it goes a long way.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much. This was great. I said at the beginning, I think this was the one that I needed the most for me and my team. So I thank you for participating. You know, our amazing panel, Dave, Lisa, Brianna, you guys have been spectacular. Next week, we're going to be talking about hosting successful virtual events. I laugh with this title because I'm kind of glad we didn't do it the first week because, you know, there are glitches and things.
Be kind to yourself, remember?
Right.
I know. So this is perfect. What I'm saying is the timing is perfect right now. Next week, it'll be great. So if you are looking to host a virtual event in any capacity, we'll have, you know, Charles from US Technologies is going to be joining me on that one, and we'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. US Tech is also offering free telecom and cloud-based business assessments to update your virtual communications capabilities. So, definitely encourage you to chime in there. Oh, and look, another little thank you to US Tech. So truly appreciate, Jay behind the scenes today and throughout this webinar series. There he is. Yay. Thank you, Jay. So, and obviously for more information, encourage you to, connect with, make sure that you're, a member of and getting all of your amazing membership benefits associated with the Charles County Chamber of Commerce. Great organization, here to help. Last week we talked about some discounts that they have available for their members. It was related to some advertising things, but definitely reach out to Bonnie and the team at the Chamber to do that. And the Charles County Economic Development Department, huge amount of resources on their website, and meetcharlescounty.com, and that's where the replay for all of the webinars will live. So it will be up in the next day or so, as quickly as we can get that live. We will be sending the replay out to everybody that was here and registered. But now I would just like to say thank you. Thank you to our panelists for lending your time and your expertise. Thank you for our attendees for coming and engaging and taking this information back and sharing it with your teams. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For setting this
All
up
right,
again.
thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.